11.
Now, an interesting story for you this morning, a GBNews investigation, in fact, and we've unveiled allegations that sex offenders are dodging their public protection restrictions by changing their names when applying for work.
How can they do that? How can they get away with that? Well, we've had a whistleblower who got in touch and said that in one case he had no power to stop a paedophile from using an alias when seeking support from a job centre.
Well, Charlie Peters has been looking into it and has this exclusive report for us.
When a prisoner is released, they are offered support to get a job and get their life back on track. Serious offenders are put under severe restrictions on where they can work and who they can work with, and they're monitored to protect the public and avoid reoffending. Yet astonishingly, GB News has learnt that former convicts are able to change their names when applying for work, making it difficult for employers to learn about their criminal past and convictions. The National Probation Service works with job centres like this one in Oxford to monitor convicts as they support their return to work. And it's staff here and at other job centres who have told GB News that ex-convicts, including at least 3 sex offenders, were able to dodge restrictions by using an alias when applying for work. Mark is a former civil servant who recently told us about how his job centre was mismanaging dangerous ex-offenders. But in new claims, he has told us about how the probation service had sent his job centre a file on a dangerous ex-prisoner using their alias.
So that meant that when the offender went to the job centre, there was no intelligence on file for them. It's all under a different name, so they could get work or devices with no restrictions in place.
In one case, a sex offender who had searched for victims on social media was able to change his name on their DWP account, despite being a repeat offender. In another scandal, Mark said he had no power to stop a paedophile who had raped a 15-year-old girl from changing his name to a female name, which meant that any future employers could now miss vital intelligence.
This child rapist decided that they wanted to become a woman. They could have changed their name and it would not have matched the name for their restrictions.
When Mark contacted the National Probation Service to raise the alarm about an alias case, the response he got back from an officer was, "Wow, you definitely have wells of patience to go through all that." The government is calling for a change in the law to stop sex offenders being able to enjoy their freedom with a new identity.
The government will also bring forward amendments to the bill to restrict the ability of registered sex offenders to change their names in certain circumstances.
Mark said that he was overseeing around 170 former prisoners returning to the workplace following their release, of which 50 were considered a risk and had restrictions. He admits that he has no idea how many were using an alias, potentially escaping their monitoring and employment restrictions. Mark contacted senior civil servants about a strategy to bypass this problem by searching for claimants using their national insurance number, which cannot be changed.
This initiative was implemented. Only months later, it vanished. It had been acknowledged this tool was needed, and for reasons unknown, it was removed.
Charlie Peters, GB News, Oxford.
Well, a Ministry of Justice spokesperson told us the UK has some of the toughest powers in the world to deal with sex offenders, and those managed on licence must gain permission from the probation service before taking up any jobs. They must inform the relevant authorities if they change their name and face recall to prison if they fail to do so.
Yeah, but what does that mean? Charlie Peters joins us now because they must seek permission from the Department of Work and Pensions, but they get that permission.
Well, here's the problem. They can make the change on their DWP Universal Credit account, and that's immediate. So seeking permission for kind of solidifying that change, making it official, is separate perhaps to the problem that our whistleblower has raised, that as soon as you make that name change on your digital account, that breaks the link with your intelligence on your risk file if you are an ex-prisoner. So someone, say, could have a litany of offences that they've put them into prison, for example, and if they leave, they should have these public protection arrangements attached to their name that say they can't work there, they can't work with children, they can't have certain devices, as you'd expect for certain offences. And that comes in a specific name. But if that person then goes to a job centre and changes their name, as they are permitted to do, on the online system, then that breaks a link between what the National Probation Service sees and what the work coach on the coalface.
We all understand that, you know, people who have done time may deserve a second chance and need to build their lives. And if you apply for something, I presume your record comes up and people may decide not to employ you or whatever. But that doesn't mean to say you should be able to just ditch your name, and with ditching your name, ditch your whole life experience and past before that.
I think people want former prisoners to have that rehabilitation, that second chance at life and an opportunity to become a productive member of society again. But they want that to happen with the right public protection arrangements in place. They want to know that the probation service, the police, the public protection units are on top of this stuff. And the claims raised by our whistleblower suggest that they just aren't.
So whose fault is this and what's being done about it?
Well, the Ministry of Justice aren't saying much in response to the claims that we've revealed today. It does seem to be, like we said, these are multi-agency protection arrangements, and many agencies appear to have lost track of this issue. So what's being done, we don't know, and we're going to continue to reveal more information about this scandal. Last month, we had the first part of our investigation into these alleged failures, and there's more to come because there seems to be a serious failure with how this country manages dangerous ex-prisoners, in particular in this Oxford Job Centre.
Okay.
Thank you.